Mr. Sahai, Mr. R.C. Bhargava, Ms. Kamineni, Mr. Kapoor, Mr. Minda, Vinny Mehta, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm pleased to stand here today on behalf of SIAM to talk to the members of ACMA and stakeholders in the industry. I was more than 30 years ago, 35 years ago, president of ACMA. And I remember from that time what the industry was, both the auto and the component industry. And I see a few faces from that time, Mr. D.K. Jain, Mr. Balaji, who were very active then, and I'm delighted to see that they are still very active now in the evolution and the performance of the component industry and the automobile industry. I also headed SIAM 25 years ago. So why am I here today? I'm here because the automobile industry asked me to take up this for a while, and I said, all right, my whole life has been this industry, I will stand up. Actually, having seen both the evolution of the automobile industry from 1960 to 1980, from 1980 to 2000, and 2000 onwards, which are three distinct phases. In the very initial phase, the automobile industry was a disfavored industry. There were tremendous restrictions on licensed capacities, on availability of raw materials, extraordinarily heavy taxation. Passenger cars were taxed at 65%, excise duty, when trucks and buses were taxed at 10%. Then came a change after 1980, and the government became more open to build an automobile industry. Mrs. Gandhi wanted to build a monument to her son, who started Maruti Udyog. And you all know the rest of the history, how the government supported and brought up the industry that it had strangled for 2 decades. Since the year 2000, there has been huge globalization effort. And it is not just the Indian-owned automobile manufacturers, but globally owned multinational companies that have become important players in India. But that is the structure of the industry. But both the component manufacturers and the automobile manufacturers live in the same world. Everywhere in the world, in every country, on every continent, there has been a disaggregation over the last more than 50 years, where the vehicle manufacturers have increasingly ceded the development and manufacturing activity of crucial automotive components to the component industry, focusing on the overall design, development, alignment with the market, and sales and distribution of the final automobile product. Not only half of the value that goes into an automobile comes from the component industry, but I dare say that a very large proportion of the technology that goes into the automobile is nurtured, developed, and supplied by the component industry. the component industry is very, very crucial. I was very happy yesterday when Mr. Oz, the representative of SMMT, described how the Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders performs its role in their market relating to the automotive industry. They are not representing motor manufacturers or vehicle manufacturers, but it is a combined body, and that indicates how to look at this industry. Vehicle manufacturers, component manufacturers, dealers, unions, all these key stakeholders are their constituency, on the one hand. On the other hand, government, regulatory bodies like the testing agencies, the ministries which determine the rules and regulations for motor transport, for safety, for pollution control, and so on. And not only this, but also finance companies, the insurance companies, and get them to understand and to support what is right for the country in policy terms for the betterment of the consumer, for the betterment of society, for increasing the wealth of the nation. We have two associations, or three: SIAM, ACMA, and FADA. All three actually relate to the same industry. We are looking at the processes and not at the industry itself. And actually, we should be talking with one voice. Also, it is important that the regulating authorities and the government is approached by these bodies, and those in turn have to respond to look at the industry as a responsible body of entrepreneurs. There is a tendency in India, nurtured from the socialist days of the 60s, to look down on industry. Government, regulating authorities still think that industry is selfish, that industry talks only of its own interest. I want to say very boldly, this is not correct. We are patriotic. We are nationalists. We are entrepreneurs. And we work together for the betterment of the country. And it is imperative for the government and the regulating authorities and the media to understand this and to be constructive in enabling us, supporting us to create automotive solutions which are right for the country. And I believe as we go forward, this is what will happen. We are, as the automobile industry, the creators of jobs, of skills, of technology. We create wealth for the nation. We create wealth for the shareholder. We accept the responsibility to reduce import and increase export. We have demonstrated our commitment to quality. You cannot get to a quality level which is practiced in some of the countries without having their scale, without having their stability, without having their clarity. Creating the scale is an important aspect. Clarity of policies and clarity of support is very important. The automotive industry, the vehicle industry, and the component industry accept without demur our resolve to comply with pollution norms. There is no question of our going back. However, these pollution norms have to evolve logically. A roadmap has to be agreed involving the industry, both the vehicle and the component industry. Any transition must be thought through properly. I was very happy when the minister yesterday said that he wants to go take the country to electromobility as fast as possible, and that diesel should be replaced as quickly as possible with other fuels. I think this is a clear statement of intent and direction. But industry cannot work on intent and direction alone. We have to work with the government in order to create a timed plan for how we can do that. We do not ask for SOPs as an automobile or a component industry, but we want to create an awareness for a healthy environment. The last year saw a number of shocks. You have all gone through that. You're fully aware of it, so I will not go into the details. Demonetization, BS3, BS4, GST, some of these have been wonderfully well handled. Some not. Could have been better handled. But it only brings out that abrupt changes without adequate preparation does not support the stability of the industry. So we need timelines on transition from fuels to other fuels, on transition to electromobility, and transition to pollution and safety standards. I am conscious of the fact that the vehicle industry cannot successfully implement BS6 by 2020 unless the component industry equally pitches in. And I'm delighted to say that the component industry is more aggressive than one would imagine in achieving this. We are all conscious of this. We all look at it. A lot is at stake. Developing one engine type for 4 or 5 applications, creating the infrastructure, engaging the manpower, harnessing the technology, costs around 100 crore rupees. So it's not something which is peanuts. Automobile companies are going to have to invest very heavily in this. And therefore, it becomes necessary that we understand clearly how long BS6 is going to last. And we understand clearly whether diesel is going to be banned or not banned. Because we are seeing 3 turbulences. Move to electromobility, the transition to BS6, and the possibility of alternate fuels coming in. This is a triple whammy that the automobile industry will have to face, and the component industry will have to support. But in this, we will fail if we do not have clarity. The investments involved, the technologies involved, the timelines involved are long. It is a big misunderstanding in the government and particularly in the media that yes, the West has BS6, the West has CNG vehicles, there are examples of biofuels. Why can't you do it? Of course we can do it. We can do it as well as anybody can do it. The point is, that is a transition which calls for investment, which calls for development, which calls for creating robustness. And this aspect needs to be understood. Very often we find, even within the industry, voices which are very sectoral or which are not industry-oriented but company-oriented, trying to steal a march on somebody else. I think this is wrong. As industry, component and vehicle industry, we must stand up and be counted that we are committed. We will get there. We have to do it in a planned manner. And I believe going forward, this awareness will grow within the industry and we will be able to influence the opinion of the country in favor of the fact that we are positive. I will take 2 more minutes. 3 tsunamis are coming our way. We had shocks last year, but we have to look for tsunamis now. The first tsunami is electromobility. The second tsunami, shared transport. And the third tsunami is artificial intelligence in vehicles which demand different technologies, different deployment. These technologies will get integrated very fast. And we have to prepare. It is wrong to assume that these technologies are nascent and they will take time to evolve. Let me assure you that these technologies are reasonably mature and can be rolled out quickly. So what is stopping this? Electromobility stands on 4 pillars. And I won't go into technical details, but I broadly want to explain how I look at it. The first pillar is battery. The second pillar is the induction motor and the drive system. The third pillar is power electronics and power electrics, which convert the voltages into usable voltages and bring the braking energy back into the system. And the fourth pillar is integration and cabling. Every one of these technologies, excepting battery, is very clear, is very mature. And you can make an electric vehicle 3 to 4 years from now in mass production if a battery is clear. The joker in the pack, the devil, also the angel, is the battery. Battery today, a standard cell that Tesla uses, which is, I believe, 65 millimeters long and 16 millimeters in diameter, costs €3.5 in mass purchase. When this cost comes down to €2.5, it draws level with fossil fuel. When it goes down to €2, electricity is a clear winner. There is a strong business case for it. When will it happen? Can happen in 5 years, can happen in 7 years, we don't know. Nobody knows. If there is an expert in the world who can stand up and say, I guarantee that this will happen in 3 years, he's talking through his hat. But it can happen in 3 years. He may be right. It's like, do you believe in an astrologer? Do you believe in a palmist to make your company's policy or to make your national policy? You're taking great risks. So we have to be prepared for everything else and hope that the battery becomes usable. Auto component industry is as much engaged, as Mr. Kapoor said, in the drivetrain components manufacture. The drivetrain component manufacture and the drivetrain manufacture is going to be hit by this tsunami first. After treatment, engine components are going to have to wake up and change. What they will do, they have to decide. Whether there is a place for them in the future, they have to decide. The vehicle manufacturer and the non-drive train part of the vehicle will survive, always. They will adapt. It is not a great job for the vehicle manufacturers to switch from IC engines of any type to electromobility. But the IC engine and the transmission manufacture and component manufacture is going to be greatly impacted. The first electric vehicle was demonstrated 125 years ago in Germany, in an automobile or in an industrial fair. So electromobility is not new. It has only become more imminent now. It is coming. You can see it on the horizon. It's there. Have such dislocations happened in the past? The answer is a clear yes. We have to only think and we see what happens when such dislocations occur. India was the largest producer of textiles 200 years ago, employing millions of people. The malmal from Dhaka went to Peshawar, and the Banarsi silk went to Thanjavur, and the Paithan sari went to Calcutta and abroad. What happened to this industry? It got demolished in 20 years by the revolution of the steam engine and the power looms and the power spinning machines. 20 years. Millions of people were put out of job. Nobody supported them. It impoverished India forever. For the last 200 years, we are suffering from this. What happened to the horse and bullock cart drawn transport in India? The railways are only 125 years old. Before that, the bulk of the movement of food grains, textiles, building materials, whatever you have, was handled by an industry which operated in relays of bullock carts from Calcutta to Lahore and from Srinagar down to Kanyakumari. Where did that industry go? It died. Something else replaced it, which thankfully created jobs. So this tsunami is going to have the same transformational impact. Let us not underestimate it. We will fail as leaders of this industry, as captains of the component and the vehicle industry, if we do not recognize that we are staring in face something which, the shape of which we do not understand yet. But we have to prepare for it. And we have to seek the active support from the government. We have to ensure that the media understands its dimensions. I'm afraid they don't. We have to ensure that the activists who are looking at one aspect of social good understand that if you do not enable the industry to transition safely, you will create a greater havoc than what would happen if we did not look after some aspects today. So it is up to us as the component industry, up to us as the vehicle industry to ensure that we work together to influence the government, the media above all, and to work together to create regulations and a transition plan which enables us to safely move forward. There is a great deal to say about the cooperation between ACMA and SIAM. I'm sure all of you are aware of the goodwill that exists between component makers and vehicle makers and the teamwork that exists in the industry. This will require much strengthening. There will be enormous pressure points coming up, and we must together face them. I'm sure the industry is mature enough to move in that direction, and the government is wise enough, and the media informed enough to understand that you cannot simply castigate us. You have to work with us. You have to understand what the issues are, and we have to move forward together. Thank you very much.